A Compliment to Coffee is about a married couple in the early 2000s, about 2000, 2001. So it is a period piece, and it's about a husband and wife who are expecting their first child. And it actually was born out of a feature entitled Door Prize that I wrote, which the central character in that story will be represented in this story. You won't actually meet them, but you will be hearing about them. And so it's basically them kind of, they're young, preparing for the next phase of their lives, I guess you could say. The wife is a mixed media artist, so we all know the struggles that come along with that. And the husband is a coffee executive. I kind of, because I'm a huge Starbucks coffee fan, I kind of based it on him being from the C-suite of Starbucks and left. He left the C-suite he's originally from New Orleans, so it takes place in New Orleans. And he moved back to New Orleans when his father got sick and passed away. So we're kind of seeing their lives after the patriarch in his life is deceased, and he's kind of, looking at the next phase of his life. He's no longer working in the C-suite of Starbucks in Seattle, so now he's kind of, picking up, basically kind of restructuring his life with his new young wife, and expecting their first child. He does come from some means, so they're not struggling like most young couples are. Kind of getting their footing.
Upper middle?
I say they're wealthy. Okay. He is. Because he wasn't in the C-suite of a successful
company.
Said
C-suite, yes, wealthy.
I wanted to make sure for this whole, I guess you could call it, I kind of been calling it the Door Prize universe, because I do really want people to get to know the characters and connect with them. There is a young black couple, because I felt like the fact that I grew up in a family of two black parents, it really was important in shaping my identity. So, that's something that I wanted to kind of show through this story. It's not my story per se, but the early 2000s, you actually still saw like the strength in a black nuclear family. And so that was something that I wanted to see in this story as well. I had him as an income for an executive at that time, a C-suite executive, because I did look that up, was about $850,000.
Oh, okay.
And $298 annually. Could go to over $1 million with company stock options, which you probably would have with like a company like Starbucks.
Yeah.
He's about 30 when the story begins.
So let's say 750 to 1 million.
Yeah.
All right, just for a range, for argument's sake. Okay. Age?
He's 30 when the story starts.
30. Ooh, young.
Young, right? At the it's so crazy because
to be a 30-year-old
I wasn't in my 30s.
Black CEO.
Yeah.
In 2000.
Well, if we were to get more into his story, like I would love eventually, I would absolutely be a dream if Starbucks would sign off on this story, because he met a Howard Schultz while he was completing his graduate education within an Ivy League. Okay. And so he, they basically, like, I kind of gave him a whole back. The reason I gave him like this whole, I really was important to give all the characters a complete backstory, is because when I did an experimental piece before in New York, and you're familiar with this, just basically drew that one off of an experience as being a reality TV show producer.
Yeah.
And doing like behind the scenes of it, but like it was narrative version, and it was all POV. Mm-hmm. Every actor that I worked with in that experimental piece was like, what's their backstory? And they probably weren't going to be on camera for more than like 10 to 20 seconds per, scene.
Yeah.
When we cut it all down. But I realized how important that was to an actor.
Yeah.
I was so used to dealing with reality TV personalities that, it's normally them, and we're following them in their daily lives. So I never had to think about what their backstory was, because I would get that as a producer, because that their backstory is whatever their story is.
Even if I were to pull, real quick, even if I was to pull out the actor element to it, because I definitely think about like how each and every character will react to an event, right? Like, so if how an upper middle class or upper class person would react to, for example, because I want to explore this, because you said the year is 2000, and I think we should mine some more details into your script, into how, like, what happened in 2000, the .com crash. I had to think. I was like, okay, what could affect their lives during that time that was major, right? Like, why pick that? Why pick a period
That's
piece?
a good point.
Why pick a period piece if you're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, you might as well just make it up there.
Point. Yeah.
So the .com crash happened coming out of that 99 2000, and that affected businesses as a whole. So that could explore why. I know there's a transition in the movie where he wants to be independent, and that could have been a wake up call for him, right? But how does a upper class person react to a .com crash versus right? So that's why like these details.
That is important because you know what I was thinking too when I initially wrote the piece was like, and I love that. I love that you're actually challenging me in that way because initially when I wrote the script in my mind I was thinking, well, he wants something that's that he can pass down in his family. His father was an entrepreneur, and he was able to. There's a business that was. This is actually part one of kind of their story. I'm going to do another part two as well, and this one is coming more from the wife's POV. Mariska,
which I definitely want to jump into.
Sorry, because that's how it hurt. But I was looking more at the fact that he's now. New Orleans based, no longer in Seattle where Starbucks is headquartered. And I wanted to look at the fact that, he's inspired by that. Like basically I had him going to Harvard Business School, getting his MBA, meeting Howard Schultz at the time, who was the president of Starbucks, president and CEO of Starbucks, because we know he's had two runs, within that company. And he was in the top, 5% of his class. And when he spoke, Howard Schultz spoke at HBS. They connected, and it was kind of
HBS?
Harvard Business School.
Oh, sorry.
And he was like, "Oh, well, as soon as you come out, like you got a place here."
Yeah.
And he's kind of basically like this prodigy, so to speak, and naturally so because he came from entrepreneurship background with his father, and I also had basically, and also another thing was when he spoke, the company went through a successful IPO that summer.
Oh, it did?
Within Starbucks.
99?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. So that's interesting. Okay, so watch how this is development. And like I said, this may not even be a storyline. This just maybe how he maybe how he makes business decisions. But think about 99, they had a successful IPO. I think the .com crash happened the same time. And then he moves from Seattle to New Orleans. Somehow I feel like these would be connected, right?
That is cool, yeah.
So that's something maybe you can explore with Samson. But let's keep going. Because I'm thinking about external, because one thing that I've been learning about writing and stuff like that, like, granted, I'm no Shayla Hebron. I'm that guy that read one book and think he knows everything. Like the dude in prison be like, yeah, so you got to understand the intricacies of the, Playboy. So I'm that guy. So I read one book and I think I know everything. But one thing that it resonated with me is like understanding what external factors can affect your character, right? Like affect their decision making and affect their emotions. So I'm looking at like that was a major thing that happened in the United States, and he's part of maybe.
I need to take these notes down.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't. Fortunately, we're recording all this, so the importance of documenting everything. So we can play it back if you want. The fact that Starbucks wasn't really a .com. They may have had like a homepage, a landing page, but there wasn't a .com, so they wasn't really. They were kind of immune to it.
Well, no, he meets him before the IPO for Starbucks, and I did this research 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. This was 92.
Oh,
so
okay.
Samson met him in 92
Gotcha.
He was still in business school. He finishes business school because I have Samson right now being born in 1970, kind of lined up with when he'd be 30.
I got you.
He finishes business school under his father's wishes that he complete business school, but to his father's dismay, he actually decides to go to work for Starbucks as their chief global strategist. Yeah. Which I know is an important thing as a part of Starbucks because that's kind of how Howard Schultz built his whole model of how Starbucks looked, the atmosphere, the ambiance. And he meets his future bride while traveling through Europe.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of how I tried to build all of that out.
Okay.
So you're right. So he'd have some time invested in the company before, again, the .com crash happens, and the fact that he would leave to start his own business.
So .com crash happened March 2000 to 2002. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. So yeah, you know, I'm like thinking about like what external factors could be affecting their lives and their decision making, you know, so, you know, you can't ignore that literally.
No, that's good because I actually kind of have, for the second script, which I have focusing even more so on Samson's story, because I have one, so it would go in 3 parts. The first part would be told from his wife's POV, the second would be told from his, and then the third being told from person we won't meet yet, but we'll meet in the third.
Third, yep. Okay.
It was second and third, but not be well acquainted with her till the third. I was thinking that he actually, that's great because that makes sense as to why he wants to start.
Let's get back to the meat and potatoes of the story. Because we haven't even talked about your girl yet.
Mariska.
So give me a little bit details about her. And of course, like I said, the .com crash could affect her
as well because it's art.
It's art, and not just that, his decision could make her panic.
That's okay. So I was trying to tap into that aspect of her, you know, instead of having that, I guess you could say, that soft place to land or a little bit more of a foundation that was being taken away from her. Especially because she's a mixed media artist.
Yeah.
You know, like, unfortunately, artists, you know, it's so subjective. So they're only going to be so successful as, you know, people would want them to be, basically their fans. So she's about 6 years younger than him. And
24.
She is 24. And, I mean, when she meets him, she's a little bit younger. I have her...
Getting dangerously close to that line.
And not really, because he would have been younger, too. He would have been in his 20s.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah. So... So she actually comes from an artistic family. Her father is a photojournalist, and her mother was a mixed media artist as well. Okay. So, because I kind of have her meeting Samson, you know, as she's kind of coming out of her late teens, going into her 20s.
Okay.
So she, of course, she was basically a daddy's girl. She was from the ages of 5 to 15. I have her growing up primarily in her mother's care. And that was in the Bronx, New York. I wanted her to be a city girl for a couple of reasons. That gave her kind of that tough exterior. So when she does travel kind of the world with her father, you know, she's a survivor. That's kind of what I wanted. Because I do always look at New Yorkers, particularly those that grow up in the city and even more so the Bronx, as survivors. Because it has...
Should be a shirt. I survived the Bronx.
But you know why? Because... that's the one thing I will give credit, like living in New York for, you know, a short period of time. I was amazed at seeing how kids navigated, you know, the subway system and navigated the public transportation system. Yeah. That was something that terrified me as an adult. So to see them like go, and you are all too familiar with it because you grew up in New York. Yeah. But I have her, basically, her mother has a breakdown. We don't really get too far into that in this story, but we touch it. We do touch upon it because she does have a therapy session in this film. But the ages of 15 to 17, I'm sorry, she is raised by her father. So when her mother basically goes to get some mental health care, her father takes her and they travel. But he passes away from a heart attack. By the age of 17, and at that point they're in South Africa, because he was covering at the time Mandela's post-presidential life.
Okay, 2 questions. As a person, how does her mother mental health affects her, and how did her father's passing affect her?
I don't get into her father that much in it, actually at all. I more so get into the mother because I think I was trying to look at the themes of, you know, breaking those strongholds of, like, she knew her mother had suffered, almost like she's afraid of passing that on to her child. And since she is pregnant during the time of this story, it's more like my mother wasn't a good mother. Clearly, like she does admit that she does have some narcissistic tendencies, which she's aware of. So she does have self-awareness, and she's afraid of passing that on to her child. This is where I guess the complexities of Mariska is where I guess maybe we need to look more into, because it's like, why is she having this child, right? Like as soon as she found out she was pregnant, it was Samson was elated. I have her basically passing out in her studio, fainting. So I wanted to basically, when she woke up, the doctor explained why she fainted, and her husband is there, and so he's elated because, oh, she's pregnant. Yeah. Great, we're expanding our family. For him, he's known basically the construct of a family setup of having children and passing on, legacy. Yeah. So for him, everything's great. And also as a former coffee executive, and as someone starting his own business, that's a perfect picture, isn't it? When you're starting a business, you have that family investment, you have that wife, you have that children. So I kind of wanted to make Samson be that buttoned up executive, right? Gotcha. Like the shawl collar sweaters when he's on relaxed days, the button up tops, the slacks. When he's relaxed, it's typically like a golf uniform, to play golf, like that early 2000-ish kind of what an executive would look like, so to speak. Wear suits to the office kind of things. Not that he's not sensitive, but he's very aloof because he's a numbers guy, right? He's kind of like brass tacks, like, what is this going to mean? So I didn't have him being so tapped into everything she might be dealing with emotionally. But in terms of Mariska, I wanted it to be a thing where she knows where it can all go wrong from a family aspect. And okay, what if my dad died when I was young? What if that happens to Samson? Like, then what? I'm not equipped to be a mother. And I think because she's 24, I looked at it from that standpoint, because I just know where I was in my early 20s, and the fact that I chose probably one of the most unstable careers, working in television. I was like, when is a child going to fit into this picture? Yeah. And I didn't meet my life partner until I was well into my 30s. So it was kind of like, I luckily had that option of, if I wanted to have a child with a partner, that wasn't even on the table for me until much later in life. So I think, but I could only imagine, what if you had that moment where you discovered you were pregnant? Yeah. And, you could try to carry your child and as an artist too, she's an artist. Can she really afford to take that downtime as she's building her career and portfolio? So, yeah, she has the security of a husband that makes decent money, but still, what about her career? She's an artist. Yeah. Artists, want to keep working as much as possible to make sure that they continue to build up that name, that portfolio. But then she's going to also find out that he doesn't want to stay within the security of a company. He wants to be an entrepreneur. That's doubly scary.
Right. So we got a little bit of background of the characters and a little bit background of the conflict, right? So the conflict is he's looking to become an entrepreneur, leave, one of the most successful companies in the history of the United States. And she's a mixed media artist. I think I know, but she has a show coming up, right?
She has a show coming. That's another conflict. She has a show coming up. This is her first one in New Orleans, and her mother-in-law, who she doesn't have the best relationship with, is actually sponsoring this exhibit. It's a part of her alumni. Okay. You like the whole thing with the father?
Her father's death just feels like you just like, eh.
I did. When you challenged me on that, I was like, oh, that was a missed opportunity.
I mean,
I could have used this. You know what?
She was a lot closer to.
I read this to you, and you could have challenged me on this before.
I've been educating myself in storytelling.
Okay.
There's certain things that I didn't.
shot this whole thing with missing holes in the story.
It's not missing. I don't know if it's missing holes. I wouldn't say that, but it's just like.
It is a great layer for therapy.
Yeah, I think it's just like, feeling abandonment, right? Like, and now she has a husband that makes choices without really checking in with her. So I think that's something that can be explored, right? Like that there's some correlation between that abandonment and feeling like alone and stuff like that. So, but anyway, do you mind just kind of a brief overview of the ending?
Well, that's where the ending to me is where there's a lot of problems too. You
Okay.
know,
Ending is where there are. I'll take note.
no, because I kind of always had an issue with the ending, and it was always kind of the first thing that like people would question and reading it is like, so at the end of the story, her husband introduces his idea of opening their own company together that
Yeah.
would infuse their other two loves, right? Coffee and art.
Yeah.
So it would be a coffee house art gallery. And I think one of the reasons I actually, even though you'll see that in a lot of major cities, the reason that I thought, the reason that New Orleans was a place that I even thought about it for is it's one of those places that can feel very Mediterranean in different places where, because they both have ties to Europe
Yeah.
in a sense, it kind of, it's a way that they can kind of open a location that would feel like that art house, that coffee house art gallery
Yeah.
that they would open together.
Gotcha.
And the funniest part about it is because I am making tweaks now, well, major rewrites to the second part of the story that would be told from Samson's point of view. You're actually still not going to see the art house the coffee shop and art gallery until the feature.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So
But tell me the story, and then you can tell me what the problems are, because with
the problems of the story.
Tell me the story, the ending first, and then we can talk about what the problems are.
So the ending is Samson, as in the beginning of the film, gives Mariska a post-it with an address on it and asks her to meet him at that location in the afternoon after she's done with her therapy appointment.
Okay.
She's been prescribed by her doctor to see a therapist. So the only other character in this film is her doctor, whom we meet. And basically, she's just had a very intense session where she comes to the realization that she's basically her greatest fears are being kind of revealed. Like, I'm not ready to be a mother. I'm basically having this baby for this man.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning, because I asked you about the ending.
Okay, let me get to the ending. No, let me get to the ending.
You give me the backstory.
Okay, let me get you the ending.
You sure?
Yeah.
You sure?
So the ending is they're at an empty, not so much lot, but like, grassland where Samson surprises her with the fact that he bought this land, this lot, to build an art gallery coffee shop on that will be their own, something they can pass on to their child.
Okay.
And she's like, wait a minute, I'm preparing for a show, here, a charity show, and you're telling me that you decided to make this huge investment in our lives without talking to me about it. I was going to come and talk to you about how I'm not even ready to be a mom, let alone take on this huge responsibility of starting, a location together that we'd both be working, on. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am as an artist, mother, whatever have you. So she actually panics and tries to get away. And the reason that it's a bit disoriented is like, when you're kind of shocked with something and you don't really have that time to react like you expect to, particularly when you're already feeling some mental instability, your first thing is like, how do I get out of here? How do I escape? And that's so, there's that disorientation again, right? And she's just trying to get out of that area. When he catches up to her, which doesn't take that long. She's pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant in this story. So
she's no Flojo.
She can only move but so quickly. That's when she's basically, tells him, I'm not even, you're up here making these decisions, but she doesn't say it that way, but she's like, I don't even want to have this child.
Yeah.
The reason I find that there's flaws in that is the last line is, initially it was, I can't have this baby, which is like, okay, girl, either way it's coming out. Like,
God has other plans.
God has other plans. You're 8 months pregnant. You got at least, typically a woman's pregnant about 10 months. So you're going to have that baby regardless. But I changed the line down to that she can't keep the baby. Which, still feels like, okay, girl, what's going on? And the reason of saying that is like, I don't think I'm going to be, but I kind of left it open.
Gotcha.
What's going to happen next? Are they going to keep the baby? Is he leaving her? Is he taking the baby and running? Or what is it? Is it, you don't really know what's going to happen.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. I know, because I know the story. I know what I want to say, but I want to walk through it.
Okay.
So what are the plots? What drives us to that moment?
What drives us to the moment of this conversation?
Yeah, like how do we get to like the because the problem with your script, there's no resolution. It's just an open-ended script, and I get it that you want to cliffhang, and I think there's a way that we can cliffhang it still,
Okay.
but also have some type of resolution. And
Okay.
and actually, I would change the last scene altogether, and I'm gonna tell you why I would change the last scene.
Okay.
So, the story's about Mariska, right? And I think it should actually, in my opinion, end with her at her show. You set up that she's gonna have this art exhibit. You never see the art exhibit?
Well, honey, I was also looking at it from the standpoint of like, what could we afford? Even though now I wish we did do the art exhibit because we went $30,000 over budget out of our own budget.
Yeah, I think we just have to work on relationships, or we have to figure out if we can get some funding. But I think you should write it because to me it feels disconnected that you set up that she has this
It does.
art exhibit and you never see the art exhibit. Like I think that she should be there.
Maybe it's revealed that is where it's going. That maybe it's revealed that he's actually invested in this place there.
Funny you said that. I actually said, I mean, this changes your story, and this is a suggestion. Please don't, like you don't have to take it. Just a suggestion that this is actually the last show at that Galleria. So she's hosting the last show at the Galleria because it's going to be sold. Don't know who's buying it. Comes out, it's him who buys the location.
That's a good twist.
So she has a success. So she's worried about she's worried about she's pregnant. She doesn't know she's gonna have a good show. Therapy session, everything resolves with her having a good show. She's overcome whatever, and then the cliffhanger is that he actually bought this location with all their savings and all that. So I was thinking of that because I think it gives an extra pressure that if this is the last showing at this location because it's going to be bought by a new owner, it's extra pressure on her to deliver, and it's even extra pressure even to take it even further. If you think about it, if they're in New Orleans and she had a good relationship with the owner of the Galleria, whatever the case may be, now she doesn't know where her next showing is going to be. So I think I was thinking like maybe you can make it like that because as we work backwards, I'll show you what I was thinking. And like I said, like take it with a grain of salt. This is ultimately is always going to be your story. It's always going to be your film. These are just all suggestions I had like thinking about your film. So I was thinking like, and the mother should show up there. I was thinking that the mother should show up there.
You actually want her mother to come?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Another character?
Yeah, like.
But it can cliffhang with that. Can it cliffhang with the mother?
No, I think that's the resolution. You need to resolute the story. At some point, you can't have a cliffhanger and a cliffhanger.
Because I have another cliffhanger in the
Not even that, too. You jump 7 years, so you never get a resolution. The resolution is like, hey!
Well, remember, I was going to do 3 parts. And
there's no resolution.
I was going to do 3 parts. And so within the third part, that was going to be more so from the daughter's POV. But the reason, like the longer, like with the filming not working out the first time around, the longer I have sat with this story, I was kind of like, the daughter's story is the feature. So why would I do 3 parts?
Yeah. That wouldn't make sense.
Father, and daughter.
No,
so
the daughter's the feature, yeah.
Maybe it's about, but you're right, I don't resolve anything about the mother.
No, so I think this is an opportunity. Or even if you don't want the mother.
Yeah, I just feel like it's another character. Because we don't even meet the mother-in-law. But I guess we would meet her if we had...
Well, that's the husband's story.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I was kind of making her like, how you have these characters that you always hear about and you never see them?
Then that's fine. Maybe it is better because you can flip it where whatever like issue she has with her mother, or because there's a couple of things I thought was cool about the backstory. One, the mental health aspect, right? I definitely think that's amazing. 2, that the mother is also an artist. So you have to live up to your mother's expectation. So I'm thinking like if she can have a successful show or maybe not necessarily worry about the success of the show, but her feeling content with what she's done. And then the hammer comes that,
oh, by the way, we're getting ready to go into this business venture that you're not quite ready for and you're having a baby.
There you go.
So and that would also spur the freak out, her running off and ending. Got you. Okay, that's gonna require some coin to pull up that exhibit. You
Yeah,
know the struggles I went through in getting like an artist to like do the paintings, and then it was extra paintings thrown in there, which was more money,
yeah.
which
Well,
was a whole
I have
nother.
some ideas too.
Okay, okay.
Blow this budget up. Um,
$100,000 short film.
I know $100,000 show for. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Some creativity could go into it, but some short films are $100,000. You know.
Yeah, I guess music videos because they're like basically short films.
Yeah. So they were $1 million.
$1 million.
Five minutes, $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I'm thinking like the resolution is her having a successful show, right? We want to get her to a place where therapy actually worked, right? Like we don't like to get or at least to a place where like the you can see
Her
that
having
therapy.
some accomplishment. It
Yes.
feels like she's just getting piled on based
Yeah,
on the way the
exactly.
script is now.
Yes, you don't want to walk out of a film feeling like depressed, and that because that's not your goal.
Yeah.
Your goal isn't for her to come out looking like like you don't see the result. You don't see that. So I think you should have. I think at least you should see the exhibit that she's been working on the back plate of the film, right? Because also think about your setup.
That's how we meet her. We meet her messing up on a painting. You get to kind of see that because that was the craziest part too. We had the finished product of that painting, but we ended up using it as additional painting in the scene to basically fill out the room.
Yeah.
But the problem was too. We were shooting. The cinematographer we were working with shot so tight.
Yeah.
We never even got to see the work anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so that's why I think the ending, in my opinion, because I was thinking about
that'd be dope because Samson could take the mic and congratulate her on having a successful show, and then like it can already be drama where the mother-in-law didn't show up, so she feels
Yeah, there you go. That's
smited
actually a
in
good
that.
way.
And then
That's a good way of saving money. Actually, make her mother not show up rather than show up.
She should do all this work, and then she doesn't show up.
And she sponsored the event.
And she sponsored the event, and then at the end, she like basically.
Also, the pressures of overcoming being a nepo baby. That's extra pressure, because she would be a nepo baby too, because her mother's an artist and has the funds to sponsor her daughter's event, even though they don't get along. So that's also. So I'm not saying you need every element, but these are just additional elements that you can think about. If you're like, that just takes too much to develop. That's fine.
So Samson can congratulate. This is one of her favorite galleries to. This is the first place she showed at in New Orleans, and that's one of the reasons I thought to buy this place and build out our own legacy for our little one to come and at a coffee shop on two. So that's construction cost.
Yep, construction cost.
And she's like, so this spurs her running out or waddling out.
Waddling out.
Because she's 8 months pregnant.
Yep.
Chasing her. And like basically her saying, I can't be ready for this and be a mother.
And the reason why, and you can maybe avoid going outside, because you remember the issue of going outside? All the cars.
Were modern.
Everything was modern.
Some of the challenges we ran with the outside footage was the electronic parking meters and the fact that, like you said, none of these cars existed in 2000, 2001. So it was like, because I basically have her like kind of being pregnant going into 2001. Yeah. So it's like the end of 2001 when this is taking place, which I thought could be kind of cool because you know how like areas that have warmer climates, like in New Orleans, you could like, put lights through the trees, look like it's Christmas time, but it's still warm there. So that could justify the warmer clothing and things like that.
Yeah. All right. Cool.